Welcome to the in-between,
where shift happens,
the moment between where we are
and where we are going.
We will ask all the questions,
maybe find some answers,
and generally work at being okay.
In the mystery of the in-between.
In today's episode, we are talking about when the ground shifts, faith, doubt, and spiritual evolution.
Sounds so serious.
Doesn't that sound exciting? Welcome, everyone, to the In-Between podcast. If you haven't been here, or if you haven't been here in a while, just to kind of give you an appetizer of how this will go is that we have an agreed upon topic. And then one comes with some questions to kind of guide our conversation. But the catch is the other person has no idea what the questions are. So they are stuck, like all of us are in life, in the in-between of the knowing and not knowing, and vice versa.
My favorite place.
Yes. Not really.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, so today we're talking about kind of a little bit of my favorite thing to talk about, which is doubt. And like in those times in our lives when things kind of like are shaken up or upside down or all the things, right? Or we come to those situations where a belief system or a way of thinking like worked for us in the past, but now we're like, not so much, because that's the nature of things, right? And how that can cause some, some challenges, some uncertainties, some flux, all that stuff. So we're going to be talking about that today. So let's just start with the first question. Are you ready?
Oh, ready as I'm going to be.
I mean, this might be the first and only question. I don't know. So, and this is you personally. Well, you can do kind of you personally, and then maybe some anecdotal for us collectively. And of course, I'll throw in my 2 cents as well. What happens when what you're used to believing no longer fits? Or what has happened when what you had believed at one point about anything? It doesn't have to be.
Let's just start off with the easy question. Jeez. What happens?
How's that show up for you? How have you navigated that? All the things.
Yeah. I think it shows up as like there's almost like a distance. Like it shows up like a separation, like a distancing from what is happening from like where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like all of a sudden observing chaos.
Chaos abounds.
Like what is happening? Like it's like my immediate reality like almost pauses.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else seems to be like speeding up. As if it's like all of a sudden I'm in some other like reality of like what is going on. And everyone else is just like their normal whatever. And I'm standing here like, no, this is crazy. What are you doing? What are all of you doing? This is totally wrong. What you're doing is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like it's something out of a movie where like someone has hit like slow motion for me and I'm like walking through like molasses as the rest of the world continues on as if nothing has changed, as if nothing has happened. Well, and because for everyone else, it probably hasn't. I just had some like random realization of like, oh my God, what I thought I believed isn't true. Right. And now it's all different. I actually had a very vivid memory of this was, I don't know, organization-wide convention in 2018. And I feel like this reference comes up all the time. So my dad had just passed away and like world turned upside down. And for whatever reason, I thought it was going to be a good idea, like 3 weeks later, to go attend the annual convention for the organization that we're working for. and I'm walking around this convention, and everyone else is there. It's their regular convention. And I'm walking through this experience like, no, everything in my entire life has just upended and changed. Why are you all pretending everything is normal?
Yeah.
And it literally was. It was like I'm like watching myself walk through this convention hall. Everyone else is having this like great experience, loving being around each other. And I'm like in this daze, like, what is going on?
It kind of makes you wonder, like, how often have we been the ones that have just been going on with life when someone else has had that same experience? It's very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, sure. And have no idea. And have no idea. Um, so I think that's like the most dramatic way that shows up. And probably not often. I mean, I don't know that we often have like life altering experiences where we question kind of everything.
I'm having those on a day-to-day basis, I think,
Well, well,
recently.
yeah, yeah. So then there's like, I don't know, I guess what feels like the more recent, much more micro version of all that. And, um, for everybody out in listener land, like Ryan and I have spent years, I guess, at this point, many, many years at this point, like dedicating our lives to some sort of spiritual journey and trying to figure out like what any of this might be about. And I, I, I'm going to go and assume that this is at least somewhat true for you. I feel like the further I get into it, the more that I thought I would know by this point, the more I'm like, I have no clue.
Yes. I mean, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. It's interesting because I think, what this really boils down to is this idea of deconstruction.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
think it's this, when we hear about deconstruction, a lot of times we hear it around like spiritual beliefs and like people are going this deconstruction of like the religion of their youth and all that good stuff. And then
Mm,
and there's less talk about the reconstruction that happens
mm.
as well. So I think I think that is a part of our life, a part of our evolution is this deconstruct, reconstruct, deconstruct, reconstruct. And I don't think it ever like ends. And I think that there's this the squidgy middle or the in between of deconstructing, reconstructing is doubt. Is that little bitty space of doubt because it's like anything when you're going from one thing to another, you have to have this doubt.
Yeah,
You often will have doubt slash faith, like it's going to be a certain way, or you're not sure if it's going to be a certain way, all that sort of thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, like I think that one of the biggest parts of spiritual evolution is doubt, because I think that's what really causes us to or supports us in asking questions, getting curious, reevaluating, and maybe these are belief systems that continue to support us. So reevaluating and reconfirming, right? That
Yeah,
sort of thing.
yeah.
I think for me, it showed up lately in, I just got finished reading the 1619 Project. And so it
Mhm.
really has upended everything that we were taught about history um,
Yeah,
of just the United States and what, or I should say, who it was built upon and built by. And so I mean, it just puts me kind of like what you're talking about, like this alternate kind of reality of like everything is kind of like swirling.
yeah.
And it takes a minute to settle down, and I think that's what I experience when I have like an aha or like, oh wow, I see that differently than I thought. It takes me a minute
Yeah.
to like, because then you have like all this swirl of thought and then it kind of settles. I
Mhm.
don't know.
Mhm. Sometimes.
Well, sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes it settles.
And then it's like, well, then what else, right? And
Yeah.
what else? And then I have this idea of like, I want all my money back from everything that I've ever right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go to that kind of polar,
Well, and
polar
and
thing.
I think doubt has to be a part of any sort of belief system.
Yeah.
Um, if you know something, then you don't have to believe it. And there's like the things that I know, like 2 plus 2 is 4. Like I know that because it's logical, it's evidence-based, it's factual. And then there's the things that I know this because I said so.
Yeah.
Or I'm too stubborn to really look deeper into it or whatever. But then
You
there's the things
stubborn.
that
No
like
way.
I believe.
Yeah.
I believe this is true, but I really have no idea. I have no way of knowing for sure that this is true. And so I think to hold any sort of like faith or spiritual belief or even just belief about the world, I think there kind of has to be a healthy doubt embedded in that. Otherwise, we do fall more and more into that like stubborn knowing.
How do
And
you
that's not a great place to be.
yeah, yeah, for sure. How do you rectify that our our brains like just need to know
Yeah. Oh,
with those things that you're talking about where I believe them, but I can't know for sure. So
yeah.
how do you like balance that or hold both of those? I guess kind of like a paradox, right?
I
How
don't
do
know
you
that I
hold
do.
both
Yeah.
of those things?
I don't know that I do balance it. um, I, I think it has taken years to develop the practice of being okay in discomfort, which is certainly another theme we talk about a lot.
Yeah,
Um, but like that was not a thing like for my parents, certainly for their parents, like or growing up, like discomfort was not a thing that was talked about. Like comfort was, looking back at it, comfort was obviously the goal. And if something made anyone uncomfortable, like it wasn't brought up, we didn't talk about it. That was not a thing that happened, right? So like even just recognizing the value in life is going to be uncomfortable at times, and it's important to develop a practice and some sort of skill set to just be in those moments when they do come up and not like crumble or completely like ignore them, bypass them, suppress them, whatever. I think that's such a valuable tool to have, and having spent, I mean, honestly, years just you and I kind of reflecting back at each other that the importance of that of just
yeah,
like okay, yes, uncomfortable, I get it, and like let's take a look at why or what's causing that, or just take a deep breath and just kind of, you know, slowly work your way through it. Um, I think just being able to be in that discomfort really allows us to look at the things that I thought I knew. And now I'm realizing like my brain still wants to know that, but logic is showing me that maybe that's not really the way it is or was or is going to be anymore or
yeah,
whatever. Because the alternative is we kind of double down. And I think we're seeing that a lot in the world is like we double down on the things that everybody knew to be true, or that's the way it was, or that's the way we used to do it, or whatever. And it just creates such dissonance and chaos and damage and hurt and pain and struggle, um, when we do double down on that and just kind of like, no, this is true, it's definitely true, it's definitely true, and it's like, well, I don't know, everything else is kind of showing us it's not true.
well, and it's interesting, I think those things that we or I'm sure this is not just me, but I can think in my own experience, the things that I tend to double down on are those things that I have somehow, um, linked my identity very strongly to.
Mm, yeah,
Um, Whether it be like, any sort of identity or my worth or my value is tied up in this thing being true
yeah,
or in this it going this way. And I think that for me, I think beginning to learn more and more the source of our value and our worth, or my value and worth, and all those things, that intrinsic sort of thing, has supported me. I haven't
Mm.
mastered it, nor will I ever, I don't think, um, in not having such a tight hold, strong hold to this has to be true.
Mm.
And I don't care how it's proved otherwise or whatever anyone else thinks, this is the way it needs to be or needs to look. And so I think that deconstructing that, these external things prove our worth, or productivity is our worth, or like all the things that we talk about a lot, and the things that the soup that we swim in, it's like the
Mm.
more I can look at it for what it is, and just allow it to kind of swim around and not digest it.
Yeah.
Um, I think that it's for me, it supports me in having being able to let go of some things that don't serve, or let go of some belief systems or ways of interacting, ways of relating to others or the world around me that is not supportive, or because I've learned something new about someone that has a different life experience from me,
Yeah.
then that allows me to let go of how I've normally interacted
Yeah.
and shift into a way that's more supportive and more affirming for everyone. And I think that we see it a lot in this kind of these polar the polarities of life, right? The polarities of our relationships and our experiences often happen when we are so entrenched in this is the way it has to be.
Yeah.
Because if it's not this the way, then what then who am I?
Yeah.
What does it say about me? What does it say about the world? What everything is going to kind of sink into this abyss, and I may not be able to get out. I know that's kind of an exaggeration, but I think that's what it feels emotionally. And I think that exactly what you're saying, that understanding that's going to come up. I mean, that's just nature. It's going to come up in our experience, and it's okay.
Yeah.
That it's okay to be uncomfortable, and we can sit in that and ask questions in that. Um, but that's hard. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when it's, when our identity gets involved, when it's an identity that's generations deep
Yeah.
in a family structure or whatever, or tied to nationality, or whatever. It's like everything I know about myself is based around this identity, and if that one thing, it's like, all right, well, maybe maybe we need to look at who we really think we are. If like one belief is going to crumble generations worth
Yeah.
of an identity, maybe that's not really who we are.
That's interesting. Well, I think it takes it right back to like your original example with your dad. And I think we have those opportunities throughout life when we experience loss, whatever it may be, of
Yeah.
a loved one or a friend or a job, a relationship, of a dream or of a life that we thought was going to go this way and it's not.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's what happens. Or I mean, that's a natural part. And I think we experience grief around that. And I think even in deconstructing, if we're using the example of like old belief systems or religious traditions or spiritual traditions growing up, and things that, now have shifted for us, I think there is that. I know I went through a period of that in my own deconstruction and
Mm.
reconstruction, a period of grief, a period of kind of what you would think about when you think about when you like the death of someone is like this like shock, anger, like all the
Yeah.
experiences, right? And so I think it's interesting how I think grief shows up in these cycles of doubt and faith,
Yeah.
because there is a grieving of what we once knew. And then, as with any sort of like grief work, there is an integration of that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that plays out in like things that we would consider happy or good things
Oh,
too,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I think there is grief in I don't mean to sound pessimistic or anything, but I think there's grief in everything because everything about life changes. And so I think there's, or resistance to the grief maybe is more common, of not wanting to let go of the things that we have liked about the past, or the way that we have identified in the past. Like, no, that's who I am. And it's like, dude, you haven't done that for 20 years.
Nostalgia.
Yeah,
Nostalgia
yeah, the nostalgia. Yeah, the good
can
old
be a very
days or whatever.
dangerous thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is you know, wrapped around that identity thing, I think there's also grief of that too, of losing, I don't know, of the just the cycle of change of the everyday of, you know, somebody was a certain job title for so many years, or somebody was a parent for so long, or whatever. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think there's grief wrapped up in all of that. So it's maybe not just like the massive big life events, but even the day-to-day stuff too. Like, everything changes. We're not the same person we were 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and I think, our resistance sometimes to that idea, or our just ignoring of that idea that everything changes, I think can also, yes, it can impact when our ability, our psychological flexibility when challenges come, but it also can impact our experience of joy.
Mm,
Because I know, like, sometimes it was it like foreboding joy is what it's called. Like, something good happens, and then you're just waiting for, oh well, this never lasts.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so then we get caught in that cycle too. And so I think that it calls us to have or to explore a different relationship with change.
yeah,
Right. And so I think, yes, we can't hold too tightly to what we would deem positive experiences, or what we would deem not so positive experiences. And I think that's the challenge. Like, I wonder, what is it to go through life without that labeling of, right, to just
mm,
experience, to see it as experience, see it as information, see it
yeah,
as
yeah.
whatever. I mean, I think that would
Mm,
transform a lot of our experience if we were able to do that. And I don't know that it's possible to do that continually, but I think that we can have little
yeah,
blips
yeah, yeah,
of an awareness.
yeah. And it's almost like reconnecting, like retethering, right? Like,
Yeah.
kind of like coming back to home base or something, of
Yeah.
like, or coming, I don't know, it feels like coming back to the middle. Like, if there's like a needle on a gauge and the needle goes far right, it's going to come back to the middle. If it goes
Yeah.
far left, you got to, we're kind of just like teetering, waving back and forth over that like 0 point in the middle, I think. But that means we have to know where zero is, or how to get back to zero, or even just know that we can get
Yeah.
back to zero.
Well, and I think isn't that the kind of like the point of practices, activities, grounding sort of things, or whatever it could be for you. You can label it however you want to label it.
Yeah, yeah.
But, I always had this idea that, meditation isn't this idea of being like without thought. It's the
Mm,
coming back, right? So, like, we know we're going to like
yeah.
wander off as brains do,
Mm,
but it's the coming back that's the activity. And so
mm,
that's what made me think, when you said that, kind of coming back to center,
yeah,
is it's the coming back is the strengthening of it. It's
yeah.
not this perfect sort of experience, or perfect sort of life, or perfect sort of decisions, but it's like, oh man, I really screwed that up. Okay,
Mm,
now how can we get back to center? It's that questioning how to get back,
yeah,
or how to slide into that space. I think that is the spiritual evolution, or just evolution in general,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
of our experience. Very interesting.
yeah. Well, now that we've got it all figured out,
I feel like we've got it figured out.
yeah, everything.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, I love this conversation. I love this idea of deconstruction
Mm,
and reconstruction. So it's
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
it's this just constant, like, it's kind of like, when you like lifting weights, that's the tearing down of the muscle fibers and the building back up stronger,
yeah,
tearing down, building up back
yeah,
stronger. And I think, I mean, that's just kind of this it's embedded, interwoven into like how things work.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes sense that, doubt and faith and growth kind of all swim in the same pool of our experience.
I think that's my takeaway is the importance of emphasizing the idea of reconstruction.
Yeah.
That we can't and don't just have deconstruction without reconstruction. And we can either do it intentionally or we can let it, I guess, I don't know, the gaps kind of fill in by themselves and we end up with some new version of an old thing probably. But
Right.
I think for anyone in any kind of, I don't know, momentary, the earth is shaking around you, beliefs are falling apart. I think that can feel really scary because in that moment, we're not thinking about this is making way for something new, for a new idea. That there is, like, not to be super cliche, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. Like there is, we do get to go through that experience to something new, something different.
Yeah.
And that reconstruction is equally as important and valuable, if not more than deconstruction. And we actually get to, like, when we remember, we get to do that intentionally and figure out, like, oh, what do I actually believe here about this thing that's in front of me? And I think that can actually be really inspiring. So even in the midst of the crumbling, there are glimpses of, like, oh, this could be totally different.
Yeah.
In a few short moments or days or weeks or whatever, like we can move through this and it will be different.
And I think it's also important to know too, it's okay just to sit still and just to rest. Right. And I was always so exhausted by this idea that we constantly have to be growing and evolving and all of the things. I'm like, God,
Yeah.
that's exhausting. Right. And so I think it's okay to, like, evaluate, deconstruct, ask some questions, and then just take a breath. Right. And we don't always have to be growing and learning. And there's no medal at the end. That's,
Yeah.
there's no, like, so I think it is okay to let it organically happen as well, and enjoy those little moments of reconstruction, just those little moments along the way, and can
Yeah.
look back and think, oh, wow, look how far, or look where I've come from where I was, right? And it's not like there's an end and then we'll stop and, like, oh, I'm done.
Right.
Right. So I think that's important too, that to be gentle with ourselves in this process,
Yeah.
because it takes a lifetime or several lifetimes, depending on how you see things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I love this conversation as always.
As always.
And I've enjoyed being in the in-between with you, my friend.
Mhm.
So thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully this has, I don't know, spurred some questions. We're more about questions than answers. So hopefully this has spurred some questions for you in this idea of deconstructing, reconstructing, and what that means. And so until next time, we'll see you back here in the in-between.
Nobody really enjoys being in the in-between.
But thanks for being here anyway.
We may not have found all the answers,
But certainly some. And maybe more importantly,
a little shift has happened.
and the beauty of it all is that we are not alone in the in-between.
So until next time, we hope a lot of shift happens.